Alright, welcome back everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about crawling. But wait, didn't we learn how to walk on two legs so we didn't have to crawl anymore? Well, yeah, we did. We started walking on two legs so that we could use our hands to do things like manipulate objects. But crawling still has a lot of very important uses. We don't use them as much now just because we're in nice groomed environments where we have nice flat trails. And we don't have to duck under things because we're not in the middle of the woods where things get kind of overgrown and you have to maneuver a lot. But we did get strong enough to start walking by crawling. So crawling has a lot of really important benefits that you can get by practicing crawling a little bit. The first one is core stabilization. You learn to stabilize your core by crawling. So when you crawl, you're going to have one hand on the ground and the opposite foot or knee on the ground. This forces you to use the muscles across in a diagonal to stabilize your body to keep it from rotating. Next, crawling forces you to use your hip flexors. We use it walking, but not over the same range of motion. And we spend so much time sitting now that our hip flexors have gotten really short and really weak. So you can really do a lot to retrain your hip flexors by crawling. There's different ways that you can crawl to make them work less or make them work more. So it's a scalable movement. Crawling also makes you engage your glutes. When you push off with your leg crawling, your glute has to engage to drive your leg backwards. Again, from sitting so much and from wearing shoes with heels, we have lost a lot of our ability to use our glutes effectively. Through practice crawling, you can retrain your glutes to, as the industry calls it now, fire, and work a little bit more efficiently than they do currently. And, like I mentioned with the core stabilization, crawling teaches your body to work on a diagonal. So if I'm using my right arm, I'm also going to be using my left leg. We walk the same way. When your left leg swings forward, your right arm swings backward. We work in this diagonal motion. But surprisingly, when a lot of people start crawling, because most of us haven't really done it since we were infants, we don't work diagonally anymore. We've lost the neurological programming to move diagonally. Instead, what happens is I'll move my right arm and my right leg at the same time. This is really inefficient, it's a lot more work, and it translates over to other movement patterns that we use on a regular basis. So by crawling, you can retrain your body to work diagonally and make other movements that you use regularly more efficient. So let's get into a little demonstration on how to crawl. I mean, you would think that would be self-explanatory, right? It was the first movement we ever did besides rolling over and picking up our heads. But movement is just like anything else. If you don't practice it regularly, it's going to kind of get worse and worse and worse as time passes. So let's see if we all remember how to crawl. All right, let's start with the basics. If you're gonna crawl, you gotta get on all fours, right? So step one is getting proper alignment. You should have your hands right under your shoulders, and you should have your knees right under your hips. So you should have a nice straight line. Now, next thing you want to do is find a good neutral spine position. You don't want to be hunched up or hollowed out. So the easiest way to do that is going to be to hunch over and hollow out a few times, and then come back and find some place that feels kind of in the middle. You should have a very slight curve in your lower back. Shouldn't be perfectly straight. You know, you don't want a nice straight curve because your lower back should have a curve and your upper back should have a curve. So you want to find something that's in between. So I talked before about how you need to move diagonally. So I'm going to start by moving my right hand and my left knee. What a lot of people will find is when they first try this, they're going to have a hard time doing that, and what they're going to want to do is use their right hand and their right knee. And that's going to look something like this. Now, as you can see, when I do that, I have to shift all my weight over to the left to free up my right side to move both arm and leg at the same time. It doesn't work very well. Whereas if I use my right hand and my left leg, I don't have to. I just balance here on opposites. So I still have a pillar of support across the diagonal. Now I can use all the muscles across the front of my body and really even on the back of my body to help maintain my balance. Whereas the other way, when I'm moving both limbs on the same side, I'm kind of just basically doing a penguin waddle to get moving. So right hand, left leg, and that's it. If you're having a hard time doing this to start with, bring your right leg forward and your right hand back. This is going to force you to move opposites because there's not enough space to move the same leg. It feels weird. So this is a great way to get a feeling for moving on the diagonal until you're comfortable with it. Now, the other thing you have to watch out for is you don't want to end up moving your arm and leg different distances. So if I move my hand a whole bunch and my leg not so much, I end up in a really weird position that I can't really move from very well. And over multiple steps, it gets even worse. So get a feel for moving your hand and your foot or your hand and your knee the same distance. And the last thing you want to look out for is not moving your hand and your leg at the same time. So right, then left, right, then left. What's happening here is you probably don't have enough core stabilization yet to move both limbs at the same time. So over time, practice taking very small steps just like that, and over time you'll build up the stabilization. Now, if you're thinking, Ben, that's way too easy. That's way too easy. I need some way to make this harder so I can feel like I'm getting some kind of workout. No problem. There are a couple different variations of the crawl to make this more challenging. So the simplest way to make the crawl more challenging is just to bring your knees up off the ground. Not a lot. You don't want to be here with your butt way up in the air. So go to a hands and knees on the ground and just lift your knees about an inch. Maintain the same spine, and as soon as you do this, you're going to feel everything get tighter. You have to maintain a lot more tension to maintain the position. And then from there, everything is the same. Another thing you want to look out for is pelvis rock. So if you don't have a lot of core stabilization or you're lacking hip flexibility, what's going to happen is you're going to see your hips shift from side to side, or you're going to see your hip drop. All right? Not that I'm trying to move the camera, but I want you guys to have a good view. This is going to be really hard to feel on your own unless you have really good body awareness. And if you have really good body awareness, you're probably going to be able to fix it really easily. You can have a friend watch you and they can tell you if your butt, or your pelvis rather, is wiggling side to side. You can also put something flat across your pelvis that's going to fall off if you wiggle too much, like a 2x4 or something like that. The other thing you can do is just videotape yourself while you're crawling, and that'll give you feedback. So eventually you will be able to feel what's going on at the pelvis. Okay, last variation. This is going to be a low crawl. Very similar, but the difference is you're going to be stretched out more. It's still a crawl. It involves a lot more core rotation to get the job done than the previous two crawls. So it's still a crawl, but it's going to look a little different. Okay, so start off in the same all fours position. Then what you're going to do is stretch your legs down and put your chest on the ground, and then you're going to make contact with your elbows. And it's still going to be opposites. This time I'm going to show you left arm, right leg, so that you can see what I'm doing. We're going to start in a crumpled up position just so you can clearly see what I'm doing. I'm going to pull with my right arm, reach with my left arm, push with my left leg, and bring my right leg forward. So one more time. That crawl is going to involve a lot of core stabilization. You're going to have to use a lot of lat to pull yourself forward. You're going to have to use a lot of hip thrust to drive yourself forward. It's actually a pretty intensive workout if you do it for any length of time at all. You're going to end up pretty sore the following day. It looks really easy, but it's a lot of work, especially if you do it over a long period of time. All right, so there's a quick overview on crawling and why it's important and how you can use it to benefit your movement practice or just your daily moving better. If you have any questions or you want to see more, hit me up in the comments below. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up or subscribe and share it with your friends. And in the meantime, keep your life in motion. Thanks, guys.